expansive restoration area that is currently managed by the Water Management District. Within that restoration area, there are opportunities for wildlife viewing, hiking, cycling, horseback riding, and even hunting. Efforts led by Senator Alan Hayes in the last 2 years to restore the ecology of the lake, to open up access to the lake, and to bring back fisheries are a vital part of this vision. If the lake is not healthy or on its way to meaningful ecologic improvement, thereby providing opportunities for sportsmen and fishermen and fisher people, I should say, because my daughter, who's 17, has recently found a new interest in fishing. So there's a lot of us out there that enjoy being out on the lake. But it's very difficult to sell the idea of a wildlife refuge on the shores of a lake that can't be used for recreational purposes. So the two go hand in hand as we talk about the vision of ecotourism in the area. So what other land uses are viable and complementary to this overall vision? Which ones can coexist, even if they don't really complement the vision, and which ones perhaps impede the vision? Can they be mitigated, and can there be compromises so that we're not so singular in our vision that we miss the opportunity to have a well-diversified economy? There's a lot of questions out there. A lot of folks are asking, will the Water Management District continue to operate and manage this restoration in the future? What will happen to the 600 plus acres that's been designated as surplus property? Could this be managed locally? Could this be a wildlife refuge overseen by local or a regional partnership, a state entity, or even the federal government? These are questions that we can't answer today, but they need to be considerations. They need to be part of the dialogue as we go forward. Today we can take stock of what's happening now, what progress has been made, what plans are on the horizon, and hopefully we will see that our chance of success, of returning Lake Apopka to its glory and putting ourselves on the map as a true destination for nature enthusiasts and outdoor sporting enthusiasts expands exponentially if we work together as regional partners. At this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Orange County Commissioner Fred Brummer so he can say a few words.
Thank you, Chair Fairfield. Folks, I would like to us to give a bit of appreciation to Lake County Commission Chair Leslie Campion and the county commissioners from Lake County and the staff of Lake County for putting together this event today. I really appreciate it. You can tell the influence of an elected official when she not only can get a state representative here, a state senator here, but 2 congressmen. We're talking about a very, very impressive effort that she's put forward, and folks in the community have heard her call. While she was speaking, it dawned on me that we stand today on the shoulders of some leaders in our Florida legislature that in 1996 and 1997 began the process of acquisition of this property for the restoration of Lake Apopka. I've followed the process since its commencement, but never once can I recall someone saying, you know, in 2012 and 2013, y'all are going to be looking back at what we've done here today, talking about wildlife resources on this North Shore property. And so the folks like Everett Kelly and Senator Tony Jennings have set the foundation for something for us to go forward. The most important thing that you're going to learn today is that on March 9th at Magnolia Park in Orange County is the inaugural Lake Apopka Wildlife Festival in Bertapalooza. Now, y'all can take a tour of the restoration in a bus, so you don't have to be the Audubon Society guys with the nice, walking shoes and things like that. Take the tour, go online to bertapalooza.com Magnolia Park, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Saturday, March the 9th. This is our effort to begin the process of environmental tourism for the Lake Shore area. Thank you very much for being here. Our next welcomer is the director of the, before that,
We're going to have a welcome from our gracious host, the City of Mount Dora, and Mayor Bob Fieldhouse.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. I'd like to thank you all for coming to the City of Mount Dora and for being part here to be participating in this summit conference on the Lake Apopka North Shore restoration and its associated ecotourism. I want to thank the Lake County Board of Commissioners, especially Commissioner Campion, for organizing this summit. I'd also like to thank our distinguished visitors who will be here later for taking the time out to Representatives Micah and Webster, both of whom are on transportation committees, and part of what we will be discussing today is transportation related. From our state elected officials, Senator Hayes and Representative Nelson, who have been instrumental in getting the appropriations necessary to support the ongoing Lake Apopka North Shore restoration. I'd also like to thank the Orange County Commissioner Fred Brummer and Scott Lloyd, and from Lake County, in addition to Commissioner Campion, Commissioners Hart, Cadwell, Connors, and Sullivan. As I look around the audience, there are also a number of members of the St. John's Water Management Authority who are instrumental in doing the restoration work. I thank you all for being here. As also I look around, there are a number of environmental organizations that are represented by the various people that are here. I thank you for the efforts that you have done so far. As well as looking around, there's a number of elected city officials representing other cities in Lake and Orange counties. I thank you all for coming. Mount Dora itself has a vested interest in the Lake Apopka North Shore restoration effort, not only for the environmental impact, but to the ecotourism opportunities that it represents. We have seen improvements in Lake Eau Claire and Lake Dora, which have brought renewed interest in boating and fishing, while the ecotourism will bring businesses and jobs to all our communities and counties in the areas surrounding Lake Apopka, and therefore I thank you all for coming here. And one last point I'd just like to mention that on April the 12th through the 14th, the Audubon Academy will be hosting an event at the Lakeside Inn, and you're all welcome to attend. Thank you.
And now I welcome to the podium the Executive Director of the St. John's River Water Management District, Hans Hansler.
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, the challenge today will be to keep the agenda moving. That's right. So I want to be brief but succinct and hopefully say some things that may be meaningful. Like everybody else, thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Fred and Scott, all the elected officials for being here. You know, Mayor Bob and Senator Hayes, Representative Nelson, on and on. This is a real example of democracy work. I mean, when you talk about this much land, government on land, and asking the community to come forward to give input and say, what kind of cake do we bake? You know, it is the people's land. And you guys represent the people if you're not the people yourself, and it's going to be fun to hear what happens today. And to that end, I'm here to say St. John's is all ears on this. We look forward to hearing the sober and thoughtful comments and input that everyone has to say. St. John's, the burden and benefit of land ownership, we own 9% of the land in 18 counties, from Georgia down to Vero Beach, including slices in Orlando and Ocala and Gainesville. And this North Shore is a mere 20,000 acres. That 9% of land is about 600,000 to 700,000 acres. And the 20,000 acres is 30 square miles. I mean, this is a serious chunk of land. St. John's is the manager of the land. He holds title to the land. The use of the land is determined by our governing board, 9 board members, and their decisions determine property management and disposition. But they, like me, are very sensitive to what the community's needs and wants are, provided it's consistent with the mission of the Water Management District. This land was purchased decades ago, it was productive farmland. We had crops and jobs, tourism. And unfortunately, the farming activity is delayed for much of the land. The Florida legislature appropriated over $130 million through Water Management District during the 90s to acquire that farmland. And so we did, and as part of that North Shore, that farmland was taken out of production. Another $50 million was spent to help restore the lake and make the farmland less of an adverse impact to the lake. Personally, I feel badly for the communities that for the loss of those jobs and the loss of that tourism. But it can be restored, and that may be something we're talking about today, is somehow getting jobs and tourism back to this area and finding a use of that land that's consistent with protecting the environment and the same kind of mission. The restoration of the lake is paramount to the district. These are kind of the overlay kind of matrix. The board approved on January 8th, the Water Management Board, a lake management plan that is consistent with both lake restoration and a variety of alternative uses of the land. That plan has maximum flexibility within the constraints. And we'll call it a palette of potential. 30 square miles of potential. So let's see what potential looks like, and I look forward to hearing it today, and thank all of y'all for being here and participating.
And now I'll ask Laura Turner to come forward, and she's going to be our facilitator today, and she's tasked with the job of keeping us moving along, keeping us on schedule. We've got a lot of material to cover, and I think I can see now that I missed Mayor Judy Tice from Apopka, so thank you for being here on behalf of Apopka. So again, thanks to everyone who has been a part of this process thus far. Thank you for being here, and let's get to work.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Campion. As she mentioned, I'm Laura Turner with Laura Turner Planning Services, and on behalf of Lake County, I will be your moderator today. What an exciting time to learn about all the activities and the setting along the North Shore of Lake Apopka. So I'm delighted all of you are here to learn more about it. As you signed in, there is an agenda. So as we've talked about, there's a lot of information, so we'll try to stay as close to that as we can. We're going to cover a range of topics, including the Lake Apopka restoration, ecotourism, information about the airport, and then several of the municipalities in Lake County are going to come together and share their thoughts. And because of all this information that we're going to be sharing, we have a short amount of time so that we ask that any questions or comments that you have, if you could save those to our comment period to the end of the program. We also have a comment card, so if you want to write those down and leave them at the sign-in desk, we'll get to your questions and comments. The county will be setting up a website, so the summary of today's proceedings and all those comments will be posted on that website. So please make sure you share your email address with us. And for a few housekeeping matters, as you walk in the lobby, there are a lot of displays about the different projects in the area. The restrooms are also off the lobby to the left or to my right in the back. And then if I could ask if you could silence or turn off your cell phones so that we don't have that disruption. So with those housekeeping matters in hand, let's jump right into the program. It's my honor and privilege to introduce to you State Senator Alan Hayes, who represents District 11, and he's going to talk to us about Lake Apopka restoration activities. Please welcome Senator Hayes.
Thank you, and thanks for being here, folks. I appreciate your interest. It is truly my privilege to be a part of this team that is working to restore Lake Apopka. I first moved to Point Garden in 1957, and yes, hens, I do remember those days. And nevertheless, Lake Apopka at that time was a destination, and it's my sincere intention to restore that to being a destination for fishing and other activities as well. and Dr. Dan Canfield was there from the University of Florida. Currently, at Magnolia Park, Dr. Canfield has a research project going that is looking at some scientific ways to clean up the water, get the muck out of the lake, and that sort of thing. At this point, all I can tell you definitively is that we are working very diligently to find the most economical way that we can do this. At that meeting, it was brought up the possibility of raising hay upon the North Shore. And as I pointed out at that meeting, we have had some preliminary contact from a gentleman who is confident that he can bring the nutrients out of the lake with a dredge and spread those nutrients over the North Shore restoration area and then raise hay out there with the phosphorus and the nitrogen and everything, and then transport the hay to destinations perhaps in the Midwest or other places around Florida where they have cattle operations. And there's just a lot of things right now that are still in a fluid state, no pun intended with water, but nevertheless, we're looking at that. We're looking at the Clean to Green operation over there and anything else. But it's certainly been a joy to see all the people coming together. Another thing that was mentioned there at the meeting at Tanner Auditorium last week was the possibility of a National Wildlife Refuge. And I said at that meeting, and I still believe, as Commissioner Campion pointed out today, the timing has to be right. And right now, we have one primary goal, and that is to get that water right. We don't want to do that at the exclusion of everything else. But without that water being suitable for fishing and recreational purposes, we have nothing but a mud hole to try to attract people there and birds, you know. Birds are great. I like them. Eric Draper was in my office just this week, and poor Eric, he hasn't decided yet that Alan is an environmentalist, but I have some beautiful bird pictures throughout my office up there, and I love them. My idea is that we are to be stewards of that which the good Lord has given us, and that means utilizing the natural resources in a way that maximizes the benefit to everybody, and that's been one of the real fun things about this project, is we have so many people that have so many interests, but everybody seems to be cooperating and being willing to talk about it, look for areas of common ground, and I'm really excited about the way things are going. It's critical, folks, that we maintain our teamwork. Representative Nelson has been a stellar teammate. Every chance he gets, he puts in a word with the governor or with other people on the various agency staffs. I do the same way. He and I work together without even knowing it. And that's the kind of team. We got Commissioner Campion, who's really taken this thing, and the others who have done that, Congressman Micah, Congressman Webster. These people want to see the thriving economy that can come from that lake. We're dedicated to doing that. So with that, I'm going to apologize. I have another meeting I have to attend, but I did want to come and give you that little update. And one of the things I failed to mention is one of our objectives in short term there in Lake Apopka is to get access to the lake. Through the dredging over at Magnolia Park, we're going to dredge out an area for a boat basin, and then most importantly, and I insisted on this, I said, I'm not going to let you go out there and spend the money for dredging if you're not going to take some measure to block that area off so the mud can't come back in. So there's going to be some geotubes, probably some sort of barriers put out there to protect that boat basin, and we'll have a channel out into the lake. Then over at Winter Garden at A.B. Newton Park, there's going to be some dredging over there. There will be various areas around the lake at different spots where we're going to be putting some fish attractors. The Fish and Game Commission will be putting submerged submerged, you could call it objects, I guess. You know, they're supposed to be things that will attract the fish to come and do their nesting there. It's going to be a long process. We have this process in Tallahassee called the budget, and that one can be a challenge too. So if you have any pool in Tallahassee, go ahead and exert it for us, okay? But thank you for being here, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Senator Hayes. And with this opening remarks, we're now going to have the first panel. If you could join me on stage, Mr. Christensen, Dr. Thomas, and the gentleman from Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. And they're going to share from their perspective their story on the Lake Apopka restoration. First speaker will be Robert Christensen with the St. John's River Water Management System.
Good morning. My name is Robert Christensen. I'm a staff member at the St. John's River Water Management District. I'm going to give you just a little bit of overview of the properties which are owned and managed by the Water Management District there on the North Shore. In the 1980s, the Water Management District really got started in earnest on efforts to clean up Lake Apopka. Our focus was on that, to restore Lake Apopka to a quality condition. In the 1990s, the Florida legislature gave direction and funding to the Water Management District to acquire just over 20,000 acres on the North Shore of Lake Apopka. And you can see in this picture, the lake in blue in the center of this, about a 30,000 acre lake, and the area in yellow with the blue boundary is the 20,000 acres we call the Lake Apopka North Shore. We've worked in earnest since the late 90s, early part of the 2000s in figuring out how best to proceed with the management of the North Shore of Lake Apopka. We've had some pretty significant issues to deal with in the form of phosphorus-laden soils and pump discharge systems. We had a pumping system there that was built to provide agriculture with their water management needs. And there was also a fair amount of residue of pesticides in the soils there that created some real problems for us here in Florida. It took us a lot of work and a lot of time. I'm happy to say we think we figured all that out. We have undertaken a fair amount of remediation of both of those issues, and we've rebuilt the plumbing system, and we are now in 2013 at a very significant moment. We're at a turning point in terms of the management of the North Shore. We believe we have dealt with the problems, and we're now focused on the solutions. And you all of you who enjoy the properties out there are beginning to see the fruits of that. This is sort of our infrastructure map that we have. Let me go back a second. What's on the slide here is a summary of the long-term vision that our board adopted just a couple months ago, as part of the management plan for the Lake Apopka North Shore. And as you can see here, it's pretty straightforward. Our long-term vision is for the North Shore is an actively managed, healthy marsh system, or series of systems. There are some things that we're really focused on providing from the North Shore, and they really have to do, in large measure, with the quality of the lake itself. We want to make sure that we provide for floodwater storage within the North Shore so that we can do a better job with lake fluctuation within the lake for the health of the lake and to supply water to the downstream water bodies during low water times. So having that storage available to be able to put a lot of water during extremely high water conditions into the North Shore is a critical part of our vision. Wildlife habitat obviously is another element. Phosphorus removal from Lake Apopka. We have the treatment system over on the west portion of the North Shore that we call the marsh flowway. It's designed and operated to remove phosphorus from the waters of Lake Apopka. And recreation and tourism is a critical element to our vision for the North Shore. In the uplands of the North Shore, most of the North Shore being wetlands, in the uplands restoration as well in those upland areas. This then is our infrastructure map, and in the yellow areas are pumps, and the red areas are inlets, culverts, and so forth. And so we have a series of pumps and inlets and canals that give us the ability to move water throughout the North Shore and to manage water levels to achieve that long-term vision. The years you may be able to see in some of those blue areas are the years that each of those flooding blocks were flooded or will be flooded. And you'll see quite a few 2013s on there. As the rains come, which we pray they will this rainy season, and we get enough water in the system, we will be flooding these areas and maintaining them in a shallow flooded condition for a period of time. And that's part of our plan going forward for dealing with some of the challenges I mentioned earlier. So the system is in place. All the construction will be completed this year. And as I said, we're moving forward. This map is included in the land management plan that our board adopted for the North Shore of Lake Apopka. And what I really want to point out is that the greenish areas in the center, those are the areas where we feel we're ready to go and really go after an actively managed healthy marsh. The areas in the darker blue are active restoration areas, which have a pretty carefully prescribed water management regime that we have to pay close attention to for at least the next 5 to 10 years. The areas in the light blue are areas where we've expressed an interest in the possibility of some alternative uses on those areas. Senator Hayes mentioned one concept of a hay crop out there that would be beneficial to the lake. And what we're saying there is that if there are agricultural uses within those lighter blue areas which help the lake, and the integration, we're interested in that. We're open to that. And so, as Mr. Kanzler said, we've got a palette here that we're interested in having filled, and we're open to great new ideas. This is my last slide, and this just summarizes our recreation map, such as it is right now. You heard some mention of the trail systems. Part of that trail system around the entire lake traverses the North Shore properties that the Water Management District has. We work very closely with Orange County and Lake County, and they've stepped up and are building trailheads and features to enhance these trail systems. So again, we supply the land and the infrastructure, and then working with the counties and a number of other folks who are very actively involved, we see a really significant series of trails, not just for hiking and bicycling and horseback riding, but also wildlife drives. We have implemented some opportunities for people to drive in these marsh areas over at Emerald Marsh, elsewhere in Lake County, very successfully, and we want to move forward with similar activities at Lake Apopka. And that's it for the overview on the North Shore of Lake Apopka. Thank you.
And next we have Dr. Joe Thomas representing Friends of Lake Apopka.
Good morning. I represent Friends of Lake Apopka today and a recently formed Lake Apopka coalition of organizations aimed at exactly what we're talking about today. When the restoration first began, the initial funding was done, and we saw that there was a chance to get this lake really restored. A number of meetings were called, mostly by St. John's, included a number of different organizations and agencies and that sort of thing, and we put together a vision for that lake. And that vision essentially said exactly what we're saying today. That should be a total ecosystem-based restoration, restoring the lake for fishing, restoring the marshes, restoring uplands around it for biodiversity, and that was our vision from the very beginning. As things progressed, we were sometimes hit with various problems that looked like it may not happen, but it has happened. And we commend the staff at St. John's River Water Management District for that restoration. We have always supported, and I don't think many people realize what a massive project this really is. As we start looking at restoration occurring and the fact And so we formed this coalition to begin looking at what we could do. And one of the things we came up with was the fact that this could easily be a national wildlife refuge, which would give us partners on a big scale, which could give us help in restoration, help in operation. We know that St. John's is not going to always have the budget to really do what needs to be done. We have put together a proposal. I've done a lot of research, and that is now available. We do agree with Senator Hayes that the timing is critical. It may not be something we start immediately, but we think we need to work toward that goal. So we now have a lot of research put together and a draft proposal, and we hope, we haven't discussed this yet with Hans, but we hope to turn it over to St. John's and say, you decide when it's time or if this is the right direction. We do see the real vision there for an ecotourism system that could outdo any others around here. It's interesting that the Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge had their festival a couple weeks ago, and one of the first venues that sold out was the bus trip to Lake Apopka marshes. So that tells us a lot about what the potential is there. So we are simply going to say we have done some research, we are willing to do whatever we can. Our coalition is large. It's taken us 2 months to write a proposal with 30 or 40 people involved, which I'll never try again. But it is a good document, and we look at it as a start. Obviously, the staff at St. John's will have to review it and add what they need. But we welcome this kind of meeting. We welcome the education of the public about what's going on, and we will do anything we can to help with that. So thank you very much for this whole conference.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. And our next two panelists are from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, Dennis Renfro and Ed Hayes.
Thank you, and thank you for having us today. Thank you. I first wanted to start with statewide. I wanted to give you some information and then fine-tune down to Lake Apopka. Based on the most recent national survey, Florida ranks #1 in in-state anglers, and that's 2.8 million versus number 2, which is Texas at 2.5 million. Angler expenditures in the state are $4.4 billion versus number 2, Texas again, with $3.4 billion. Angler-supported jobs around 75,000 versus Texas at number 2 at 60,000. State and local taxes generated by sport fishing, $440 million. Versus Texas, again, number 2 at $392 million. Of the 28 million anglers fishing in Florida, 1.9 million were residents. 0.9 million were non-residents, our tourists that come in. Anglers average 17.2 days per year fishing in Florida, for a total of 46.3 million days of quality outdoor recreation. And of those, 24.4 million are spent in freshwater by 1.4 million anglers, and 23.1 million were spent in saltwater by 2 million anglers. I wanted to note in this, freshwater anglers spend more time on the water. That's working. Going through building our program components, it's about partnership building, it's a tractor, fish tractor construction, public outreach, and project evaluation. Our project goals are to concentrate the sport fish for anglers to improve quality and quantity of sport fishing. We want to enhance that angler utilization of the existing fish populations to increase the sport fishing effort. We also want to make a portion of this build a community participation and support of the Harris chain of lakes, and specifically in this one, the Lake Apopka. And we will evaluate this economic impact of the fish attractor to the local community. Fish
Fisher tractor construction is strategically placing brush piles, hardwood brush, tree limbs 5 to 8 feet over elevations that are appropriate to bring the fish offshore and produce a concentrated effort. Since it's very hard to do the underwater photography, this is our rendition of just a simulated underwater model of a fish tractor. It's very simplistic in design. It's concrete block tied to hardwood brush and with a small float to keep it upright. And these consist of 100 brush, block, and anchor units and a 4 by 25 grid, and they're marked very highly visible to allow anglers to find. And we'll also have GPS coordinates and maps that will be presented for this. This is a map of Lake Apopka. The yellow squares indicate about 25 plus sites that have already been located in appropriate areas. One, we're trying to go close to the public boat ramps as we'll provide that access at a short distance, and then move forward into other areas that have strategic locations that allow for the slope of the land on the west and south side. And as we install these, we will be going in and tweaking the locations, developing maps for these, and also plan on our FWC to have a power plant. This is more than just sinking brush, replacing the fish tractors to attract and support fish. We want anticipated benefits would be enhanced fishing opportunities for Orange and Lake County residents, and then increased support for lake management and conservation, and then possibility of increasing the visitors. And we understand, as part of this, we also want to look at the economics of the Fisher Tractor program. Our project timeline is we will construct 4 of the tractors this month. We put in the first one yesterday, very successful. We will also be using a contractor March through June, and then depending upon the dredging, we will be going through putting a large number of tractors right around the 2 boat ramps for the public fishing areas. One of the other things that we're doing with Florida Fish and Wildlife is stocking the sunshine bass in the lake to help augment the fishery, produce a new fishery. What we tried to do is, over the past, since 1980, stock about, each year that we've stocked about 370,000 of these fish that produce that fishery. And that creates a fishery. And then for our next part of our presentation, the project manager for that other section, Ed Hayes. Thank you very much for having me.
My name is Ed Hayes. I'm a project biologist with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. I handle the aquatic habitat planning aspect of the project. And our goal is to increase the quality fish and wildlife habitat by expanding the vegetation. As you all probably are aware, Lake Apopka once had a great deal of aquatic vegetation to support the bass and the wildlife that used to live there. Over the years, though, that has kind of gone on the wayside. So we're going to see if we can't get some more back in there. Our plan is to put bulrush and spatterdock as far offshore as possible to create a wave break. Come in behind it and plant emergent vegetation like eelgrass, pondweed, what have you. We patterned this off of projects we've done in the past. This is Lake Monroe. You can see here we planted a solid line of bulrush way offshore. And then you can see back in behind it all the eelgrass that's come in to date. We've done about 2,900 spatterdock plants. We've done 60,000 bulrush plants. Approximately 30 acres of lake bottom has been planted. And you can see this is the actual outline of the areas that's planted. It's a pretty fair area down North Shore. It's pretty simple to get guys out there in the lovely water. They put the plants in.
join me in thanking all our panelists and talking about the restoration efforts along with And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Congressman John Micah, representing District 7.
So you know who I am, and so I don't forget who I am. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. You've heard of that young, was it rock and roll group, the New Kids on the Block? Everybody heard of them? Well, I'm like the new kid on the North Shore of Lake Apopka, and all brought to you by courtesy of the Florida legislature with congressional redistricting. I've had the honor and privilege of, I know I look very young, but I've been in Congress for 20 years, and that period of time transitions 3 congressional redistrictings. I had 32 cities and 6 counties strung out from Winter Park, the north side, all the way up to Jacksonville. So I focused quite a bit on the area that I represented, and that's part of our system. Over the years, I had some of the area up to Apopka in the first 10 years of my service. And now they've condensed it down to 3 counties, coming up to Apopka and over to the very Orange City and Deltona on the north, and then down to about Highway 50 out to downtown Bitlow on the south. So that's what brings me here. Am I an expert on the restoration of North Lake Apopka? No. Actually, I came today really to learn more. They asked me to speak on the benefits of ecotourism, and certainly there are many. One of the 3 legs of the economy of the state of Florida, of course, is tourism. And we're in the heart of probably the principal tourist area of the nation and the world in Central Florida. Most of the visitors who come here, quite frankly, come here to, I call it plastic world, and see a lot of wonderful creations of mankind that are very modern and have been created, but we do know that there is an incredible opportunity for ecotourism. Just got back some of the airline, and in Congress I focus on attention on transportation. I have since I've been there, and have the honor to chair that committee and still serve in a leadership position on transportation issues in the Congress. But I've got some statistics. The airport in Orlando is the busiest airport in the state of Florida. It surpasses Miami and, of course, Tampa. Over 35 million passengers. When I was in the legislature some years ago, and we built the Orlando airport, it was designed for 24 million passengers. They'll soon be building a terminal to the south. And what's kind of interesting, the transportation links should be fairly dramatic. Of course, we've got some regional rail service on rail, possibly Orange Blossom Express out to the northwest at the core area of Orlando. And then an interesting proposition, Florida East Coast Railroad is looking at bringing in high-speed rail from Miami. What's Micah talking about North Shore of Lake Apopka and ecotourism, and how does it connect? Well, you'll be able to go on a high-speed system from Miami to this region in a matter of 3 hours. Very huge new effort in bringing people to this area, to creating a new industry. It was great to see some of the postcards and pictures of the past. And this area has always had one of the three legs of business activity. Of course, we had agriculture, but we have always had tourism, and that's brought so many people from the very beginning to our state. So I do not have an agenda, say, in this area. I have had some experience. Some people say, "Oh, here's a conservative Republican. What the hell is he doing here?" I have to tell you that I've heard, like I heard Senator Hayes a few minutes ago talking about the treasures that we have, and we do have natural treasures, and we are the custodians of them, must preserve them. And I've had some of that opportunity in my capacity. For example, a lot of my work is restoring the damage that we've done in building our highways and infrastructures. For example, like in Lake Macy, Lake Helen, that was an example where we actually built Interstate 4 over springs and blocked natural flow of waters. Rose Bay over on the East Coast, the restoration of Rose Bay probably took me 15 years. And here we built US 1, just dumped and backfilled and clogged an incredible natural estuary. We got that done. It took many years, many agencies working together. Right now we're working on the preservation of the Berry Bayou to the south, another restoration project. Also brought on by some studies report the pollution, the building, the development that has taken place around our state. I come from South Florida, and I grew up in the Miami area, and I saw how they built right to the Everglades. Now, actually, the past 20 years working with Senator Dole and some others, we helped pass an Everglades restoration project. So I've had the opportunity to participate, I think, in some significant projects that have made a difference in our environment in Florida. The restoration along the St. Johns. You have to acquire the land to control it. And here you now have this land and you can control it and you can determine its destiny. So as you come up with these plans, the best thing to do is to let me know. I've got my district representative who will be servicing this area. Where's Dick Harkey? Raise your hand. This guy here. He'll be here when I go back to Washington to spend the money that you don't have left. And speaking of money, too, there are things that we can do and responsibly return your money. I just finished a major transportation bill in which we consolidated many federal programs, trying to get the federal bureaucrats out of the way and get the state as the bigger player, so you don't have to march on bended knees to Washington. You're looking at a guy that also probably helped finance and support more trails. I think I have more trails in the state of Florida and my district than any place in the nation. Now we can connect them and make them usable and enjoyable and available for the public, and also connect them into these areas. And I did take a tour of what you're doing there. We'll support that. But you have the ability now to worry about 40 cents on every dollar we're spending. So I don't want to line you up with a partner that is financially on the verge of bankruptcy. But we can find ways to, again, utilize the resources that the taxpayer have given us to assist you in projects that we all find that will benefit our community. Ecotourism has a great potential benefit for the future. Look forward to working with you. I never finished telling you the number of people that come in, but Orlando Airport, 35 million. Sanford, Orlando, from 17, 18 years ago, with 0 passengers up to 1.8 million, a 17% increase in passengers arriving there, many of them international who also would like to visit here. Daytona Beach Airport, again, another success story, over 7% increase last year in passengers, up almost every one of the last 37 months with just a couple of exceptions. So the people will come. They do enjoy things other than just the normal tourist routine here in Central Florida, and we have an opportunity to entice them and also invite them, and then also, I think, dazzle them with our natural beauty. Look forward to working with you. Thanks for having me come out. Any quick questions? That's sometimes unusual. I'll give myself for some abuse. But I'd welcome any questions. Anything at the federal level? Well, again, look forward to meeting and working with you. Alan Hayes has been a great champion, Fred Brummer, Brian Nelson, others, and I see that we have many local officials, State Water, Johns Water Management District, and other agencies, the wildlife agencies, state and federal. Look forward to working with you again in a positive future. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Micah. And with that overview on ecotourism, our next panel is going to talk about that very topic. So if the panelists representing Lake County, Orange County Parks, and the Winter Garden Heritage Foundation come up here and join me, that would be great. And we're going to actually follow the order that you see in the agenda. So for our first, let me just walk through who our panelists are. With Lake County, we have Wendy Breeden, Public Resources Director, Galis Quigley, who is the Trail Specialist, and Adam Sumner, who is the Interim Director for Economic Development and Tourism. Matt Sudemeyer is the Orange County Parks Director, and Katie Kappelman is the Winter Garden Heritage Foundation. So we'll begin with Wendy. Please join me in welcoming Wendy.
Thank you, Laura.
I'll follow suit.
I'm Wendy Breeden, Public Resources Director for Lake County, and one of the divisions under Public Resources is Parks and Trails. So I'm going to be starting this segment of the presentation by talking about Lake County's trails, parks, and amenities along the western side of Lake Apopka. Lake County developed a Trails Master Plan in 2008. At the meetings held to gather public input, the Lake Apopka Loop Trail was one of the highest rated trails citizens wanted to see built. The trail, which is now only partially complete, will be about 49 miles loop around Lake Apopka in both Lake and Orange counties. It will connect to several local and regional trails as well, providing access to a wide array of outdoor recreation opportunities for citizens and visitors. Lake Apopka has invested in the construction of the South Lake Trail to provide a regional connection to the West Orange Trail and the Van Fleet Trail. The South Lake Trail also provides a vital piece of the Apopka Loop, and the Hancock Extension connects to the National Training Center in Claremont to allow world-class athletes to utilize the trail system. Thanks to a National Scenic Byways grant obtained by the Green Mountain Scenic Byway Committee and a land lease from St. Johns River Water Management District, the North Shore Scenic Overlook and Trailhead will provide a western gateway to the Clay Island area and the North Shore. Through this access point, residents and visitors will enjoy spectacular views and an amazing assortment of plants, birds, and other wildlife. This project should be completed by the end of this year. We know our work is far from complete, and as demand and economic activity grow, so will the pieces of the puzzle around the lake. Connections to preserves, parks, trails, cities, and towns will create opportunities for residents, visitors, and investors in ecotourism. Lake County also has an extended blueway system of 8 paddling runs totaling over 130 miles. We see great opportunities to expand the blueway system with a paddling trail on Lake Apopka. Working in cooperation with the St. Johns River Water Management District in Orange County, a paddling loop connecting points around the lake could be created. This shows an artist's rendering of the scenic overlook as a key feature of the trailhead that's being developed along County Road 455. The map at the bottom is just another slide that's showing St. John's proposed and existing hiking, biking, and driving trails on the North Shore. This slide shows just a few of the connections the completed Apopka Loop Trail would make. The North Shore Overlook that we've been talking about is located between points 6 and 7, which is between Ferndale Preserve and Clay Island along County Road 455, otherwise known as the Green Mountain Scenic Byway. The Green Mountain Scenic Byway weaves through Winter Gardens downtown and the scenic vistas near Sugarloaf Mountain along the western side of Lake Apopka. An extension is being proposed that would continue it northward to Mount Dora's quaint shops and restaurants, providing logical start and end points for the byway. If adopted, the extended byway would be a total of 34.8 miles. This map shows the existing scenic byway in green and the proposed extension in pink. You'll hear more about the Green Mountain Scenic Byway later in the program. Lake County's 192-acre Ferndale Preserve, purchased with assistance from Florida Communities Trust, the Lake County Water Authority, and the St. Johns River Water Management District, is located on the western shore of Lake Apopka, also along the Green Mountain Scenic Byway, and it has a high point of 168 feet above sea level. It provides a stunning view of the lake, and on a clear day, the skyline of Orlando. Beautiful sunrises over the lake and lots of wildlife and birds make this a great location for photographers, birders, and nature enthusiasts. The preserve is currently open Wednesday through Saturday and has equestrian and hiking trails, a small parking area, and a pavilion with educational panels depicting local ecosystems, wildlife, and restoration areas. Duplicates of some of the panels are in the reception area today if you'd like to see them. The preserve is still a work in progress. This is a picture of the kiosk panel map of the preserve showing the current and future trails and amenities, which will also include a future canoe launch onto Lake Apopka.
I'm Carlos Quigley. I'm the Lake County Parks and Trails Division. I'm going to talk to you some of the activities that we do out there on the Western Shore utilizing our properties. Lake County Parks and Trails has worked with many groups, mainly Audubon societies and Birds Club, and we take them on tours, including our properties and including them working with St. John's for access into the North Shore area of Clay Island. To date, we've taken 8. Many of these clubs have come back multiple times because the birding in this area is just so spectacular. Give you some idea, as part of our requirements with the SCT grant, as well as just some of the natural things we do to promote nature-based tourism to get our residents out into nature so they appreciate what we have. Just at Ferndale alone, we do 20 to 40 nature-based educational events every single year. These include surveys, nature hikes, butterfly walks, a whole wide assortment of things, and hopefully a few of you will look those up online and come and join us and see what we have out there. It's a beautiful sight. Other things we work with the Lake County Water Authority extensively to do what we call paddling adventures. These utilize our blue waves, and we have worked with St. John's for access from the observation tower at Clay Island in the North Shore to paddle Lake Apopka down to Ferndale, which we hope someday we can make that part of a blue way that people can do that on a regular basis. As part of our ongoing efforts, of course, we do a lot of promotion of these activities and promoting ecotourism. We want to bring people to Lake County, not just we want residents to come out, but we want people from neighboring counties and elsewhere around the state to see what we're doing and come out. So we have our events guide listed here. We have many of the brochures that we've worked with out in the lobby. Our website, we use Facebook to promote many of these activities. This is probably one of the biggest things that we with Parks and Trails, along with Economic Development and Tourism and many other volunteers and departments with the county have put on the Wings of Wildflower Festival. This is a very well-attended festival. We have a lot of birders. We have people from all over the state and around the country come out. We use many of our parks. The North Shore, the bus trips were just like the Space Coast. They were filled to capacity because it is such a great birding area. Those of you who know me, you know I'm a very crazy birder, and this bird here is the sage phoebe. This bird is currently, right now as we speak, on Ranch Road on fence line, like it has been for the last 6 years. It returns every year about September 30th to the day, and this is a rare bird in Florida, and hundreds of birders have been out there to see it. I've led many field trips out just to see this bird. To give you some idea how important ecotourism can be to the region. The Christmas bird counts are something birders do every year, and Lake County has 3 Christmas bird counts, of which 2 incorporate parts of Lake Apopka. The Zelwood Mount Dora count is probably the most famous of these, currently holding the inland Christmas bird count record for the number of species seen in the United States on a count that doesn't have coastal access. I know you have to understand that the coast has advantages with habitat that we don't have, but Lake Apopka is such a unique place. It attracts a large number of rare birds and birds that probably should be over on the coast. And then Claremont started working with the Scrub Jay Trail down in Claremont. We've did the first Claremont Christmas bird count, and the weather was horrible, but we managed 128 species on that count, which is excellent. Once again, this is on the western shore of Lake Apopka.
Good morning. My name is Adam Sumner. I'm currently serving as the Interim Director of Economic Development and Tourism for Lake County. I want to talk to you a little bit about the economic impact of tourism. As Congressman Mike well said, tourism is a vital part of our economy in the state of Florida and in Lake County. Lake County today, our economy, we're looking at about $200 million economic impact from tourism every year. For a county that doesn't have a coast or a theme park, that's an amazing number in this economy. The Winds and Wildfire Festival that Gal spoke about, we had over 3,000 attendees. Incredibly successful for a first-time event. The Space Coast Burning Festival started about 15 years ago. The first year they had 500. So we've been able to piggyback on what they've done, and we're now very excited to see what Orange County Commissioner Brunner mentioned with the Lake Apopka Wildlife Festival coming up. The host hotel was sold out for 3 days. It was Lakeside Inn here in Mount Dora. It's a beautiful property. They're now, as Mayor Wilhelm very openly said this morning, working on their own burning events out of Lakeside Inn. They're marketing to the burning community. Those people have very high incomes, and they like to spend their money, and we hope they spend it in Lake County. One of the things that we launched from our office is a Burgers Means Business card campaign. All the burgers who come in, we give them a little card. They put their name on it. They love to show this card to local businesses. Oftentimes, local businesses will offer a discount or buy one, get one free or something to see that card. Because they will come back. If you support burning as a business, they're a very loyal customer base to have. They will keep coming back. As we said, this was our first festival, held September 28th, 30th, 2012. Gallus, as you've heard, is our very passionate burger at the county. Without his efforts, the efforts of Captain Bagon and our staff, St. John's Water Management, and about 75 other partners, this event could not have been as successful as it was. So, some of the photos these were taken during the festival, give you an idea of some of what we're seeing out there. We had 90 vendors set up at Hickory Point during the festival. This event had over $1 million economic impact on our economy. It cost the county about $2,800 to put this event on, thanks to the partnerships, the sponsorships, and the volunteers that we had turn out. We had over 150 volunteers for the festival. Absolutely astonishing number. They put in probably thousands of hours that we could have to track. Without their hard work, again, we really truly appreciate it. These are some of the events that we do throughout the year. Interestingly enough, in November, our hotel tax revenue went up 6%. For us, that was kind of a shocking number because November, historically, we have the fewest number of events in Lake County on the calendar. But burgers who were here in September came back. Lakeside Inn told us they had several return burgers who wanted to come back in November because the burning was so good in September, they wanted to come back and see it again. Fishing tournaments are a big part of our tourism. You were talking earlier about where they were putting these fish attractants in the lake. If I can get a map of that, my dad and I will really appreciate that because when I'm not working, I'm in the boat. So we love bass tournaments and crappie tournaments here in the Harris Chain, Lake County. The average fisherman spends over $250 a day. That does not include their hotel. That's gas, that's insurance of the boat, that's food, parts for the boats, that kind of stuff. It is a very big driver for our economy in Lake County. The Harris Chain, if you haven't been out on fishing lately, it's better than it's been in my lifetime. It is phenomenal fishing. We've got proof. January 3rd, 4th, 5th of this year, we had college bass masters here in Tavares. You notice the gentleman from Florida State set a record. That's the largest bass ever caught in a college tournament. It was 10 pounds, 7 ounces. Wow. He caught it in Lake Harris. The two young men in the upper right corner set 2 records. They weighed in 5 fish on the first day at 29 pounds. The second day they weighed in 5 more fish at 25 pounds. 2 more records for college bass fishing here on the Harris Chain. What we're doing for the Lakes Water Management at St. John's, you guys are doing a phenomenal job, and we truly appreciate that. Film and TV production. Several years ago, one of our speakers from the Wildfire Festival filmed a show on the Scrub Jay Trail down in South Lake County. Huge boost for us and burgers coming to see the Scrub Jay. He's now part of our festival and will be coming back again this year. And his next site to film in Lake County for his television show is on the North Shore of Lake Apopka. This gives you the economic impact numbers of filming here. Again, professional bass tournaments, they film them for TV, so we get a double win on those events. And it's a very good impact for us. James Curry is the gentleman I was speaking about. He will be here later this year filming. He will again be back for our festival in October of this year, for our second annual Winds and Wildfire Festival. October 4th and 6th, mark your calendar. It's going to be bigger and better this year. We will be at Commissioner Brummer's Festival promoting the event, working with the organizers of their event to promote the North Shore. This is a very vital critically important piece of our tourism plan for Lake County, and we want to see it grow. And this is our new artwork that we've done this year. The artwork that we did last year won 5 awards from the Florida Festivals and Events Association. Hopefully we will exceed that this year. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Sumeyer from Orange County.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here today. I'm going to mainly talk a little bit about the Lake Apopka Loop Trail, and then get into a little discussion about our trail system in West Orange County. You already heard a little bit about the Lake Apopka Loop Trail, but it was a partnership with the St. John's Water Management District. Mr. Christensen and Mr. Caselli were real helpful and great to work with. I think we got the agreement, the maintenance agreement, and everything figured out in like a half hour out in a pavilion there at Magnolia Park. So it was a wonderful partnership that we have. The development costs for our portion of the trail to get to the district property was $500,000. And I'd like to recognize Commissioner Brummer, who's here, and Commissioner Boyd for making sure that we got the funding passed through the board for the project. We also, the trailhead is at Magnolia Park, and you guys have heard a lot about Magnolia Park and what's going on there. But one of the exciting things about having the trailhead at Magnolia Park is we have about 18 campsites there, and it's the perfect opportunity for people to come camp, spend the evening, spend the weekend, and go birding early in the morning or late at night, and it's real popular for birding. So this past month in January, we had 1,000 visitors. We opened the trail in June of 2012. We started out with about 300 to 500 visitors a month, and now we're up to 1,000. So the word's getting out, and that's 1,000 people driving to the area, spending their money on gas and maybe some hotel rooms, definitely at our campground. So it's been a huge benefit in tourism for us. We only have 3 miles open right now. The 3 miles gets you to the pump house, to the lake pump house, where we just recently installed a pavilion there with 2 picnic tables for shelter and as an overlook to the lake as well. You've seen this, you saw this map earlier. You can see where the trail in the solid red line begins at Magnolia Park, goes to the pump house where the pavilion is, and then continues along the shore, and then back up north, back down into Lake County, and back along the shore into the Lake County trailhead. And as soon as the St. John's, the district is in the process of doing some dike improvements and some improvements to the surface, to the road. As soon as that's finished, the rest will be opened up incrementally. This is the plan on how we're going to tie the Lake Apopka Loop Trail into the West Orange Trail, which will eventually get into Lake County. It's kind of a busy map, I'm sorry, but if you look over to your left, you can see Magnolia Park, and you can see 3 options, blue, red, and green. The blue option was option 1, which we funded. That was to get the trailhead in and get access to the North Shore. Option 2 is to connect to the West Orange Trail going south, close to the 429. And then option 3 is going more southwest to Parkona Horseman's Park and tying in over there. And I'm happy to say that this past December, the Board of County Commissioners approved funding to go out and begin acquiring the right-of-way to eventually, when funding is available, to build the trail. So we haven't determined which corridor we're going to follow, the one that goes along the 429 south to the West Orange Trail, the one that goes west to Parkona Horseman's Park and the West Orange Trail over there. But we're going to take the path of least resistance and one that's most affordable. So. And then Tying all this in, the board just approved our Trails Master Plan back in December as well. And if you look over to the left, you can see the black circle. The green dashed line is the West Orange Trail, and that portion that option 2, the West Orange Trail connected from the Lake Apopka Loop to the West Orange Trail. And then we'll be on the West Orange Trail and be able to go north up the top of Island through Kelly Park and then tie into Lake County. And then I'm pretty sure that conceptual plan of the Lake County Trail comes up through Mount Dora and is part of the Central Florida Loop, which is something that the state is working on. So that concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'll turn it over to Kay Kaplan with the Winter Garden Heritage Festival. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Kay Kaplan. I'm the director of the Winter Garden Heritage Foundation. I've been asked to speak today about the impact of the West Orange Trail on our city. You can pass through historic downtown Winter Garden at almost any time on any day, and you will see pedestrians and bicyclists on the West Orange Trail. It goes right down the middle of our main street. You'll see kids playing on the fire trucks or caboose in front of the Heritage Museum or at the new interactive fountain. You'll see diners lingering at tables outside a variety of restaurants and theater patrons gathering before a show. All of this is a testament to how a community can change with the right mix of service and amenities. Let me start by giving you a short history of Winter Garden. The city didn't exist before the railroad. When the Orange Belt Railway came through the area in 1886, the community was established after area farmers built a train station on the line. Farming was the industry. Citrus growers began growing, selling, and shipping oranges to northern markets. Soon, a second rail line came through the community. The town grew up right alongside the two sets of railroad tracks. In the 1920s, tourism caught on as people discovered the largemouth bass capital that was Lake Apopka. A hotel and trailer camp were established just for fishermen coming from all over the country to fish in the lake. In the 1940s, a juice plant opened in Winter Garden. As sales of orange juice skyrocketed, so did the city. Downtown Winter Garden was the center of action in West Orange County during these boom years in the first half of the 20th century. All of that began to change in the 1960s. Three things happened that caused the city's decline. The first was the pollution of Lake Apopka. By 1970, it was evident that something was terribly wrong with the lake. Tourists were no longer coming to the area to fish. No one wanted to go near the lake. The second thing was a byproduct of Eisenhower's Federal Highway Act. Interstates and highways constructed across the country lured shoppers away from downtown centers. Highway 50 was built just south of downtown in Winter Garden, and new shopping centers along 50 and malls in Orlando carried commerce away from the city center. The advent of highways also caused the eventual closing of both railroad stations in downtown Winter Garden. The final blow for the city was the below-freezing temperatures during the 1980s. Cold temperatures, along with the growth of the theme park industry nearby, convinced area farmers to give up on citrus farming in West Orange County and move further south, where temperatures were just a few degrees warmer and land was cheap. These three things had a profound impact on the city. Downtown buildings were abandoned. Many were used to store boxes of junk. Weed-infested used car lots and pool halls and bars were the only thing happening in downtown now. This was the entrance to the city center in 1990, an abandoned packing house alongside an almost abandoned railroad track. In the early 1990s, a group of concerned citizens applied to the state to become a Main Street city and hopefully lure business back downtown. Their first project was to create a community redevelopment area, a CRA, in the blighted downtown. This group eventually morphed into the Winter Garden Heritage Foundation, a 501c3 organization. We acquired the historic ACL depot and opened a history museum. The Central Florida chapter of the National Railway Historical Society purchased the other depot in town and opened a railroad museum. Both museums are operated today by the Heritage Foundation. The city and the Heritage Foundation worked together to do a historic property survey in 1997 and eventually established a historic designation for the downtown business district. Meanwhile, Orange County was making plans to join the Rails to Trails movement. They decided to turn the path of the almost abandoned tracks from Apopka to Oakland into the West Orange Trail. In 1994, when the first phase of the trail opened, the railroad tracks through downtown were still being used occasionally. A fence was put up alongside the trail so that users wouldn't inadvertently fall into the tracks. This caused a problem for downtown businesses as it made it difficult to cross the street. Luckily, within a few years, the connection between the ACL and the T&G tracks on the east side of town was complete and the downtown tracks were removed. This set the stage for the final piece of the puzzle, the downtown streetscape. It began in 2001. After 2 years of extensive work, the city took on a whole new look. In the $5 million project, the city put in utilities underground and re-bricked the streets. They also built the clock tower, a fountain, a gazebo, and totally re-landscaped, creating a place with unique character and charm. While the trail proved to be the catalyst for downtown redevelopment, the streetscape project was the icing on the cake. All of this was done in preparation for the city's centennial celebration in 2003, a year-long series of events celebrating the city's 100th birthday. Since then, the city has continued making improvements. Some of the improvements have been infrastructural work, such as parking lots and side streets. Other improvements, like the interactive fountain and farmers market pavilion, draw even more people downtown. Still, other improvements have been collaborative projects. The Winter Garden Heritage Foundation worked with the city to purchase and restore the abandoned Garden Theater. The project took 5 long years and $3.5 million. The restored theater is now a performing arts center that hosts over 200 events per year and provides an economic impact of over $1 million annually. Other redevelopment successes include the Edgewater Hotel, a historic bed and breakfast that now contains 3 fabulous restaurants. There's new infill structures hosting retail shops and offices that are made to look like the historic brick buildings. And the Bond Building, a $2.5 million project restoring 2 of the oldest buildings downtown, now provide 18,000 square feet of retail and office space. Since 2010, downtown public and private investment has averaged over $1 million a year. Currently, the buildings in downtown are 98.6% occupied. Lease costs per square foot have risen 40% since 2010. Average sales are up 20% from last year, and the value of the CRA is up from just over $20 million in 1995 to $65 million in 2011. According to an economic impact study recently conducted, almost 1 million people used the West Orange Trail in 2010, amounting to a $3.6 million in sales, with an indirect economic impact of $5 million. While these statistics are impressive, the real proof of the economic benefit derived from the trail can be clearly seen with the naked eye. Many people in the city are excited about the potential increase in tourism that will result when the North Shore Restoration Area and the Lake Apopka Loop open to the public. We feel strongly that once these projects are complete, they will attract even more people to our area. As you heard earlier, more species of birds have been counted on Lake Apopka's North Shore than anywhere else in the southeastern United States. A 2007 study conducted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service outlined the economic effect of ecotourism at St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge, a similar, but we're told much inferior, Florida birding site. The study cites that the annual revenue of almost $24 million was generated in 2006 by over 800,000 visitors, of whom 93% were non-residents. Another study conducted in 2011 at UF cites the importance of what is called gateway communities. According to this study, communities near parks and wildlife refuges are important because they provide accessible sleeping, eating, and shopping venues near the outdoor experience. Since we're located at the important intersection of the Florida Turnpike and State Road 429, we feel like downtown Winter Garden will provide a perfect gateway into the North Shore area. At the Winter Garden Heritage Foundation, we're positioning ourselves to act as a gateway welcome center. We're currently in the midst of a capital campaign to construct a new building that will replace a parking lot next to our museum on Plant Street. The new building will be alongside the West Orange Trail and will be the first thing visitors see as they enter downtown from the east. The facility will serve three important purposes, one of which is a visitors information center, providing a natural first stop for tourists seeking information about the area's amenities. The miraculous rejuvenation of downtown Winter Garden has mostly occurred since 2003, in only 10 short years. While we're celebrating the success, we continue to look to the future, and we're really excited about the prospects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of information to absorb, and I believe now it's time for a break. We'll take about a 15-minute break, and we'll reconvene here about 5 minutes to 11. Thank you very much.